In 2023, the death toll dropped on Rikers by 47%, from 19 deaths in 2022 to 9 deaths in 2023. This was significant, but there were still serious issues that plagued the compound. Rikers Island faces a mental health crisis beyond their control. The facility houses many detainees suffering from mental health issues. The complex has become the largest mental health provider in the city. There are potentially 50% or more inmates who's been diagnosed with mental health disorders in the complex. Many inmates with mental illness are placed in general population. This creates an unsafe environment for them and possibly other detainees. Mentally ill inmates are also prone to have violence exacted upon them. As seen in this footage, where a mentally ill inmate is brutally attacked by an orderly at Bellevue, there is a lack of care and a long wait time for competency hearings, evaluations, and treatment. This condition affects Black and brown communities severely. In 2023, detainee 27-year-old Manish Kanwar, a native of Nepal, was found unresponsive in his cell and declared dead at 6:20 a.m. on October 5th, 2023. Manish was arraigned on September 27th and had only been in custody at Rikers Island for 7 days. Manish was extradited from Delaware to account for 2 bail jumping charges, 1 robbery charge and 1 charge of grand larceny. Manish Kanwar spent 5 months in a psychiatric facility in Baltimore. When he was picked up in Delaware, Manish indicated he felt like self-harming. Manish was described by news outlets to be homeless and mentally ill. Unit checks by COs were not conducted per schedule. If checks were carried out, Manish Kanwar's condition would have been detected and aid could have been rendered. This has been and still is an ongoing issue at Rikers. Manish Kanwar's death led to the suspension of a captain and an officer. Alexander Roter was arrested for possessing pills and a handgun with the purpose of unaliving himself. He has been locked away on Rikers for a year, awaiting his day in court. Alexander has experienced violence from other detainees. The prosecution will not allow Roter entry into a special court design program to assist people with mental illness to steer clear of prison. Alexander continues to battle bipolar 1 disorder on Rikers Island. His next court date is set for September 11th, 2025. As Rikers see inmates previously diagnosed with mental illness enter the institution, there are inmates who develop mental challenges inside and exit the island much different than they arrived. There are key contributions to the development of psychological problems on Rikers. The conditions on Rikers are horribly inhumane. There have been official federal documented issues in Rikers, such as dirty toilets, sinks, showers covered with mildew, and infections of roaches, ants, water bugs, fruit flies, grains, and mice. Former inmates have disclosed there is a lack of personal hygiene products, inmates developing infections from self-harm wounds, and limited access to water and showers. In the summer, Rikers is extremely hot, earning the nickname the oven due to intense heat with high temperatures in the summer and presumed lack of air conditioning sets a brutal environment. In winter, cold conditions with a lack of warm clothes and blankets can potentially lead to engaging in risky, illicit activities for mere survival. There is also an overcrowding problem. This issue increases violence, strains infrastructure, makes the delivery of services difficult, and creates an even more unsafe environment. The infrastructure is falling apart. There are visible cracks on the surface of the buildings and foundations. The paint is peeling, tiles are missing in walls and floors, and corrosion is throughout metal walls. The facility has damaged doors and broken window screens to boot. Rikers Island is built on a landfill. Most of the correctional facilities at Rikers sit directly on top of a landfill comprised of decomposing trash and waste from New York City. The jail that began with 90 acres extended to 413 acres using garbage as its foundation. The decomposing trash releases poisonous methane gas, is highly combustible, and can create unpleasant odors. Living under these conditions could have a negative effect on mental health. The violence on Rikers Island is nothing short of being in live combat. Rikers, often referred to as Gladiator School, earned that nickname with its whole chest. There are many facets of violence in Rikers. Correctional officers are charged with maintaining order in the facility and at times must use physical force. But sometimes CEOs use violence unprovoked or allow actions by inmates to guide their emotions and lash out. Inmates have been punched, kicked, and stomped, and even worse.
Good afternoon. My name is Preet Bharara, and I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Today we announce more sad news out of Rikers Island. Specifically, we announce charges alleging a killing and a cover-up. Both relate to the untimely death of Ronald Spear, a Rikers Island inmate who died on December 19, 2012, after receiving a brutal beating. 3 men are charged. Brian Cole, a Rikers Island correction officer, is charged with violating Mr. Spear's civil rights under the U.S. Constitution by repeatedly kicking Mr. Spear in the head so hard that it caused bleeding in the brain. Mr. Spear died minutes after this violent assault. The other 2 corrections officers charged, Byron Taylor and Anthony Torres, are not accused of killing Mr. Spear, but along with Cole, they are charged with trying to cover up the vicious attack by conspiring to file false reports and otherwise obstructing justice.
Brian Cole, a former Rikers CEO, kicked a handcuffed sick inmate in the head to death as he was held face down on the floor by Byron Taylor and Anthony Torres, 2 other correctional officers. Cole and Ronald Spear got into a verbal argument. Spear invited Cole to suck his private area, and it set Cole off. After kicking Spear in the head repeatedly, Cole bent down, put his face to Spear's face, and stated, "This is what you get for effing with me. Remember that I'm the one who did this to you." Cole even kept a framed copy of the article describing Spear's death on his wall in his bedroom. It was reported that Spear asked for help and wanted to see the doctor. He suffered from end-stage renal disease. The blunt trauma to the head caused Spear to have a heart attack and bleeding of the brain. CO Torres asked Cole to stop, even placing his hand in between Cole's foot and Spears' head, being kicked in the hand himself, but the damage was done. Cole was arrested, charged, convicted, and sentenced to 30 years. His co-conspirators, Byron Taylor and Anthony Torres, who participated in a cover-up, each pled guilty to charges. Brian Taylor pled guilty to 1 count of perjury, 1 count of conspiracy to obstruct justice. Anthony Torres pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to obstruct justice and filing false reports. Taylor and Torres faced 15 to 25 months in prison. There has also been organized fight night style violence orchestrated by correctional officers engaging inmates to fight with each other and turning their backs while inmates are assaulted by other inmates. Also, COs have been known to unleash chemical agents such as pepper spray on inmates.
We are giving you a rare look inside one of America's most notorious prisons, Rikers Island off the coast of Manhattan. New surveillance video obtained by News Nation shows right here these inmates crowded around a cell and cheering. Now, we cannot see inside that cell, but an ex-inmate tells News Nation that a brutal brawl was unfolding inside. And in an exclusive interview from his hospital bed, Dominic Nelson says not only did the guards know about these so-called fight nights, but actively encouraged them. Ayanna Harry from our New York City station explains.
Incarcerated people running across the housing unit to see the fight.
October 19th, 2021, another fight night on Rikers Island.
Cheering.
Nelson says from last June until December, he participated in Rikers fight nights. Nelson says he was told to fight by a correction officer.
They will give us compensation like cigarettes or drugs or food and stuff like that to like do stuff to other inmates. Last incident that I had, I knocked a guy out and I peed on him. The CO paid me to do it.
Nelson claims after that last fight, he told an officer he would no longer be a part of fight night. But then days later, on December 15th, Nelson says he was attacked from behind and stabbed in the right eye. After the stabbing, he was also threatened by an officer.
And he said if I tell anybody who stabbed me, that they was going to get me stabbed again and they was going to make sure I die.
Inmate-to-inmate violence is completely out of control on Rikers. There have been several stabbings, physical assaults involving shoving, kicking, punching, and in some small instances, SA. There is also a vast amount of gang violence in the facility. While CO violence against inmates has become commonplace, inmates attacking COs has become more frequent. At any given time, a CO can be assaulted. Correctional officers face challenging working environments. There are staffing shortages at Rikers due to COs using sick and medical leave. Correctional officers must face high levels of aggression from inmates and must be able to navigate those instances. They can very well find themselves on the receiving end of their attack. COs work with a small crew, and a lot of them don't feel safe. Some are afraid to show up to work.
The feds should take over Rikers Island. That call tonight from some New York City correction officers after one of their own was brutally beaten by gang members at Rikers. He is now in critical condition, that officer, and the beating captured on video now sparking outrage at the chaos at Rikers. Eyewitness News reporter Kimberly Richardson live in the Melrose section of the Bronx with the story. Kimberly.
Well, Bill, first an update on Jean Souffrant. He's been moved out of intensive care, and we're told he now has some feeling in his leg. Authorities now believe it was 4, not 6 inmates who brutally attacked the 39-year-old at Rikers, the one who allegedly planned and executed it all, a teenager with a grudge.
Those 4 people in there, they may look like kids, but they damn near killed this correction officer.
All 18 years old, already locked up at Rikers for violent crimes, including attempted murder. Today, the known gang members were facing a judge for their alleged role in the brutal attack of a correction officer Saturday night. Authorities say that Stephen Espinal sucker-punching Jean Souffrant. Other inmates then stomp and beat the unconscious 39-year-old. Officials maintain Espinal planned the savage attack and, referring to the officer in a recorded call, said, quote, "Yo, he acting like a super cop."
They hold meetings sometime in the day room, sometime they talk to each other from cell to cell, and they let each other know what they're going to do.
The beatdown, payback. Officials say Souffrant had recently cited Espinal for refusing to remove a covering on a window in his cell.
And that's why we're so angry. That's why we're so, frustrated. Because I feel like they failed to protect him. They dropped the ball in this case.
Dozens of fellow officers, fearing for their safety at Rikers, filled the courthouse, calling for the Department of Justice to step in and take over control of Rikers. As for the other officers seen in the video before and after the attack, union reps say they did everything right.
The one officer that was spraying, the other officer that went to assist the correction officer, and the other officer that was there prepared for anybody else that would come running in that situation. We did what we were supposed to do. So I won't entertain anyone trying to say anything negative about what you saw in that video.
Now, all four suspects are due back here in court on Friday. Now, coming up, the main thing critics say would have prevented this and other attacks at Rikers: punitive segregation. We'll have that for you at 6.
Another key contributor is the box. Solitary confinement is used for various reasons in prisons. Disciplinary segregation is a punishment for prisoners who violated the penal institution policy and rules. Administrative segregation is used to contain dangerous individuals who pose a threat to inmates and general population, and protective custody to keep inmates who are in danger from other inmates from meeting harm. On Rikers, solitary confinement is described as a 6 by 8 foot cell made of cedar block walls, a bunk bed, a toilet, a sink, and a metal door with a tiny window made of mesh. Meals are delivered by a slot. Insects, roaches, and mice sometimes invade the already cramped space. At Rikers, punitive segregation is solitary confinement. There has been significant mental anguish suffered by inmates who have spent time in the box on Rikers. Those who have done long stretches in the box seem to fare the worst. Across the jail and prison system, juvenile offenders spend a considerable amount of time in isolation, leading to psychological and physical consequences. The box can drive a person to full-blown madness. Solitary confinement can lead to psychological issues such as depression, anxiety, and self-unaliving tendencies. There has been a legal call to limit the use of solitary for those inmates under 25 and complete elimination for minors. Inmates in solitary display mental distress, have panic attacks, hallucinate, and experience paranoia. There are physical symptoms that plague inmates in solitary. Some develop skin irritations, changes in weight, lack of physical activity, cause muscular pain, chronic conditions that get worse, fatigue, and digestive issues. There are high rates with its connection to self-harm. The lack of follow-up and support for discharged people is highly lacking. There are no successful discharge plans in place for individuals with mental illness and emotional issues who exit Rikers. A prime example is Kalief Browder. Kalief was born May 25, 1993, and grew up in the Bronx. He was the youngest of 7 siblings. Kalief's biological mother battled drug addiction, and he was adopted by Vanetta Browder. The young teen met a tragic end when a chain of reaction of unfortunate events derailed his life. 16-year-old Kalief and a friend were walking home from a party. The police responding to a 911 call stopped Kalief and his friend on Arthur Avenue. Thinking it was just a stop and frisk, which he'd experienced and complied with before, he didn't feel uneasy. However, that would change when Roberto Batista, sitting in the back of the police car, identified Kalief as one of the two black males that robbed his brother of a backpack containing $700, a credit card, and a camera. Kalief was arrested and taken to Rikers Island. There were conflicting accounts of Roberto Batista's story concerning the robbery. During questioning by police, his story changed quite a bit. He stated he was robbed the night of the 911 call, then later said the robbery took place 2 weeks ago. He then said that they tried to rob him but didn't succeed. Nonetheless, the prosecutor charged Kalief with robbery, grand larceny, and assault. Kalief was on probation stemming from a juvenile charge of joyriding when a stolen bakery truck crashed into a parked car. For that reason, when he went to his arraignment, he wasn't released. He was charged with second-degree robbery, and bail was set at $3,000. With the bail's bombing, the amount to bond out was $900 cash. After his family raised the bail money and met with the bondsman, he informed them since he was on probation, his PO violated him, so he wouldn't be able to get out. Kalief was taken to Rikers Island. Kalief was housed at Robert N. Devereaux Center. Kalief was tormented by the enormous amount of violence at Rikers. The brutality he himself would endure would leave him broken. He was beaten by COs in a quest for information concerning troublemakers in the unit. He and other inmates would be lined up and punched. He and the others were threatened with solitary confinement if they spoke of the beatings. On October 20th, 2010, Kalief was spat on in his face by a gang member. Kalief punched the gang leader and was jumped by 15 gang members. Kalief was not a member of a gang. On September 23, 2012, a video of Kalief being beaten by a guard while handcuffed would materialize. Kalief was put in solitary confinement after a fight with another inmate. He would spend 2 weeks there. For 3 years, Kalief spent on Rikers Island. 2 were spent in solitary confinement. Guards beat him while he showered. They would also starve him due to his self-deletion attempts. Kalief's mental state suffered tremendously. His court date was pushed back continuously. The prosecution didn't have a viable case, and their star witness, Roberto Batista, returned to Mexico.
There was nights when I couldn't go to sleep because all I thought about was when I go home, what would be the first thing I would do. There was times when I had cried myself to sleep, and it was hard, the whole thing, and being in there with the correction officers and them making my stay even harder. That was one of the main things that had me stressed, because that court date that they had told me that if I say I could go home is the same day that I came back from court, and I had gotten a little petty argument with a correction officer, and he had starved me. So it's like—
You said he starved you?
Yes, I was starved.
Explain that. There are a lot of people here who don't understand what happens in prison.
Well, at the time, I was put in solitary confinement because I was jumped by the correction officers, and they said that I had allegedly assaulted them first, so they had put me in solitary confinement. And in solitary confinement, they control your food and how much food you get, and when it's time for the feeding, they give you your food. So if you say anything that could tick them off in any type of way, some of them, which is a lot of them, what they do is they starve you, they won't feed you, and it's already hard in there because if you get the 3 trays that you get every day, you're still hungry because I guess that's part of the punishment. So if they starve you 1 tray, that could really make an impact on you. And
how much were you starved?
I was starved a lot. I can't even count. But the worst time I was starved is when they starved me 4 times in a row. They starved me breakfast, lunch, dinner, and breakfast again. And
Finally, after 3 years of continuous postponements, the case would be dismissed and Kalief Browder was free to leave Rikers Island. Once home, Kalief tried to live a normal life. He attended college, worked, and tutored kids in math. He also filed a lawsuit against the New York City Police Department, the Bronx District Attorney, and the Department of Corrections. Although the Kalief had left Rikers Island physically, he was never able to escape mentally. Kalief tried several unaliving attempts, starting when he was an inmate at Rikers. The first was in 2010 and the second in 2012. Kalief's third attempt would see him admitted to St. Barnabas Hospital psychiatric ward. This admission would be the first of 3 to the hospital. On June 6, 2015, it would be Kalief's last and final attempt. At 12:15 p.m., Kalief Browder would transition. He unalived himself by hanging. His dedicated mother, Vanetta Browder, found him suspended from their second-floor bedroom. Kalief kicked out the air conditioner cover, used a gold cord, and hung himself. Kalief's death weighed heavy on Mrs. Browder. The grief of losing her son was unbearable. Mrs. Vanetta Browder passed away from a heart attack just 1 year later in October 2016. Kalief's story is a prime example of a very broken system that needs immediate attention. In 2024, there were 5 deaths total for the year, continuing the downward trend. Deaths in Rikers Island were down 55%. However, 1 death is too many. 30-year-old Manuel Luna lost his life on Rikers Island. Luna passed away after only being held in Rikers for 1 week. On one of the coldest nights on record, Luna was transferred from his original unit due to concerns for his safety. Affectionately called Panda by his family and friends, he was moved from the Springs to cell number 4 in Unit 5A in the George R. Verno Center at 2 a.m. on January 20th. Just 19 hours later, he was gone. Luna's brother Angel stated his brother wanted to be moved to another unit where he felt safe. Angel, a U.S. Navy officer, stated that after speaking with his niece and lawyer, Manuel was in a positive place, looking forward to the future. But a short time later, he would be found unresponsive in his cell and pronounced dead. 2025 has seen an uptick in deaths at Rikers. As of July 2025, there have been a staggering 9 lives lost in custody or connection to Rikers. Last year's 2024 total was tied with 5 by April 1st and has now almost doubled. The first death happened on February 15, 2025. Ramil Powell, 38, passed away at Rikers' Otis Bansom Correctional Facility. Powell had been an inmate since July 2023. He was arrested in connection to a Manhattan attack in May 2023. He allegedly attacked a stranger with a box cutter. Powell was involved in a verbal disagreement with the victim. He left, but came back and cut the man on the side of his face. Terrence Moore, 55, died February 25, 2025. An alleged murderer succumbed to a seizure suffered in a holding cell in the Manhattan Criminal Courthouse. Ariel Crudone, 20, died in the hospital after he collapsed in the Rikers hallway. Ariel's cause of death was sepsis. His lawyer stated he showed signs of appendicitis and complained of serious stomach pains after he arrived at the jail for 4 days. Outlets reported that Crudone had an intellectual disability. He had been arrested for robbery. 5 days later, Sonia Reyes, 55, was found unresponsive on March 20th in her cell at the West Facility Complex. She was pronounced dead a short time afterwards. Her death after investigation has been ruled a self-unaliving. Her family does not believe that and stated her son specifically that Rikers killed her. Ms. Reyes was serving a 1-year sentence on a misdemeanor assault charge. Reyes was arrested due to a July 2023 argument with a man and woman on Neptune Avenue on Coney Island. A fight broke out, and Reyes stabbed the man with a box cutter in the ribs. Deshaun Jenkins, 27, was pronounced dead at 10 p.m. on March 31st after falling ill at the George R. Verno Center on Rikers Island. Deshaun had recently celebrated his birthday the previous day. He was the 5th death in the institution so far this year. Staff noticed Deshaun was ill, and 45 minutes later, he died. Deshaun's family are struggling with the loss and question what happened to him. According to family members, Deshaun requested they send money to different inmates. They were afraid Deshaun was being extorted. They are now wondering if this situation had anything to do with his death. Deshaun was awaiting trial for an alleged attempted murder charge. He was arrested in Manhattan on July 16, 2024. Benjamin Kelly, 37, was found in medical distress at the Eric M. Taylor Center a little before 3 p.m., June 20th. A correctional officer conducting a tour found Kelly in his cell suffering an alerted aid. Medical attention was swift and administered, but Kelly was pronounced dead at 3:31 p.m. The official cause of death has not been disclosed at this time. Kelly was arrested in Queens on May 29th for larceny charges. James Maldonado, 56, experienced a medical event while on board a bus heading to Rikers. He was pronounced dead at 4:49 p.m. on June 21st, 2025. Efforts were made to aid Maldonado, but were unsuccessful. Maldonado had just recently been released from the hospital and was being taken to Rikers to be held for a court appearance. He was initially arrested on June 18th on Staten Island for second and third degree robbery, petite larceny, and criminal possession of stolen property. To mark their passings with even more tragedy, Kelly and Maldonado died within 78 minutes of each other. Christian Clunado, 51, died after 7 a.m. on July 9th, 2025. At Bellevue Hospital's jail ward. Clunado had been held at Rikers since October on burglary, petite larceny, and criminal possession of stolen property in connection with an August incident. Clunado had bile duct cancer. His lawyer attempted to have him released before his death. Edward Quispy, 33, died July 22nd on Rikers Island. He was found unresponsive in a bathroom at the Eric M. Taylor Center and declared dead at 8:28 a.m. Crespi was observed on the floor of the bathroom and medical emergency was inactive. Efforts to aid Crespi were given but failed. He had been incarcerated on May 21st, 2025, being arrested May 19th and was due back in court to face charges for SA on a child. Although the death count decreased from 2022 through 2024, we are now seeing deaths rising, and violence is still at an all-time high. Rikers has seen its fair share of tragedy, despair, and death. Please join me for part 3 and my final installment of my Rikers Island trilogy series. Please like and subscribe so you won't miss any new uploads. Until then, take care of yourself and each other.